Yeah.
All right, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Calling a Man's Answers show, episode 93. I might be wrong. They still start to move together. But without further ado, what's up, man? How are you doing? Who are you? Just introduce yourself, what you do, and everything like that.
Man. Thank you for having me on, first and foremost. My name is Liam DeBoer. I am a videographer, content creator. Went to school for music. I've just kind of been creative stuff, involved in creative projects my whole life. And then recently, about a year ago, during all of the lockdowns and all of that, I randomly shared a take on lockdowns just about mental health during all of that, and literally just was addressing it to my friends, essentially kind of saying like, hey, any of my friends need to reach out to anybody struggling, all of that kind of stuff, let me know. And the video very instantly went outside of my friend group. I think it still might be one of the larger videos I've done to date, but yeah, just the response about kind of skipping the bullshit about it all, and just kind of like, I didn't get into the politics of anything. Like, I didn't really care at that time. It was just kind of like, hey, because this was December of 2020. Yeah, December of 2020. And we were just heading into our second lockdown in Canada. And it was like, nobody was talking about mental health. Like, to say anything that like lockdown, this was back like when saying anything against lockdowns would get you crucified. And so yeah, no, the people really enjoyed the cut the bullshit kind of thing. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll cut the bullshit. And so I've been talking online for about a year now. And yeah, no, it's been fun and interesting. Unplanned was never really a thing I thought I'd find myself doing, but here we are.
So you currently living in Canada? Yeah.
Yeah, I live in Toronto.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. Yeah, so I knew you were Eastern time, so I'm not really fluent on Canadian cities. I know Toronto and I know Vancouver.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, that's a good thing to start with, and especially the cut the bullshit stuff. Canada and the United States, while they're a lot alike, they're very different, right? Especially in their politics and the way they act, and you guys there's a big protest going on in Canada. Do you just want to debrief about that? What do you know about that? What's going on with Canada and the lockdowns and the truckers?
So how long of a breakdown do you want on that? You want a quick spark notes, or you want to get into the gritty? Because
get into the gritty.
Okay, I've been covering this pretty hard because the media up here has been slandering the fuck out of it. Like, it's been pretty wild to see what they're throwing out there. Anyways, I think it was about a week and a half to 2 weeks ago, a convoy of truckers launched from out west. I believe it was Alberta. And they started making their way over to Ottawa. And as they were coming across the country, they just kept picking up steam. More people joined. And by the time they reached Ottawa, the convoy was 50,000 trucks long. It was crazy. The people like getting on to the overpasses above the highways, like jam packed with crowds at every overpass, like people cheering them on, like saying like, yeah, this is great. They arrived in Ottawa 4 days ago, and they have kind of gridlocked the city around, and which is it's crazy that it's truckers of all things, because like if there's anybody who can last outside for long periods of times, it's like these guys and girls are like used to doing runs across country and stuff. Like, they sleep in their truck for weeks at a time, right? So they're quite literally camping out. They've got fuel reserves coming in, like fuel tankers coming in and topping up trucks that are blocking off the downtown core of Ottawa. And so yeah, there's definitely been some crazy allegations about the movement. Like, it didn't take long before it started getting slandered as a white nationalist movement. So essentially what happened was, there's a guy named Pat King who is definitely a white nationalist. Like, there's no getting around that. Like, he's started a group called Wexit, which is talking about wanting to separate Western Canada from the rest of Canada, just because there's some big differences between, like, I would say East and West Canada is very similar to like kind of how like South, like those kind of, I would say like the Alberta crowd would be very similar to the Southern Americans, like in that kind of like conservative culture, blue collar, boots on the ground, like pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of people. And East Coast being kind of much more liberal in that sense. But so there was this guy named Pat King who has been trying to make it so that the West would branch off from Canada essentially and become their own country, like Quebec has tried to do and all that. And this guy definitely has white nationalist views. And essentially what he did was he made a video live streaming from his truck when he was part of the convoy, and just saying how like everybody should come in and hop into this convoy, and isn't this fun, we should come out here and fight for our freedoms and this and that. And the media instantly picked that up and being like, this is the organizer of the group, so therefore this is a white nationalist movement because he is so clearly a white nationalist. But within hours of it coming out that he was making these claims in his truck, the actual organizers of the Freedom Convoy immediately denounced him. They're like, Pat King doesn't speak for us. Like he's not a part of. Yes, he is in his truck he's one of these 50,000 trucks, but he's not calling the shots here. He's not deciding what our motives are. So he immediately got denounced. And then the white nationalism stuff really started compiling from there. And then what ended up happening was there was a Confederate flag that showed up, which is so weird. Like, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I remember in high school, like I grew up in a very like blue collar town, and like people in high school would fly Confederate flags on their back of their truck, and it never fucking made sense to me. I'm like, literally, even if you're Southern American, it's like, I'm not saying I support the Confederacy, but like at least I can understand why you are like where you would be coming from. But like as a Canadian flying the Confederate flag, I'm like, I have zero fucking idea of what you're even trying to accomplish here. Like this has nothing to do with anything up here. But anyways, he immediately got shouted out by the crowd. Like the crowd immediately was like, hey, get out of here, like we don't want you here. There's footage of all this, and which is great to see. Like it was awesome to see some, like just the whole crowd be like, hey, this isn't what we're about here. And then seeing as that didn't work, the next day a Nazi flag showed up on the scene. And it's like you don't want to see that shit at all. Like that's terrible. Like nobody nobody rational is looking at that and saying that's okay. And what ended up happening was the organizers of the Freedom Convoy immediately started issuing rewards for anybody who could provide the police with information about who this person is. So there's now a $7,000 pot for anybody who can bring in, because the guy's masked, like he like full mask, like ski mask. So they were like, yeah, anybody who can provide the police with information about who this is, like $7,000 yours, no problem. So like this protest is like, dude, it's crazy seeing how smart and on top of it they all are. Like even a war memorial was kind of like driven over with like a truck. Like it didn't get broken or anything, but it was just like people were being like heavily disrespectful to it for sure. And immediately the press picked that up, and also people had put a no more vax mandate sign on Terry Fox. Do you know who Terry Fox is?
No.
He's kind of a Canadian legend up here. He ran across Canada with one leg to raise money for cancer, and he's a living legend up here. Like we have Terry Fox Day. I remember every year growing up in school, we would all go do a 5K. Like I think it's in October or September, and there's a statue of him in Ottawa, and they put no more vax mandate signs on him, which is like cheesy. Don't try to like do that, pull that shit. Like I mean, he wasn't even alive during any of this. Like don't try to say like he would be anti-vax, like who fucks knows. But instantly the people of the actual protest, like the large majority of people, like this happened like on one instance with these statues, and people now are literally shining statues across the city, shoveling the snow off of them, laying flowers. Like there's literally there's videos of veterans saying, like disabled veterans shoveling and like coming out to these statues, and now like literally without yes, they're shining sans spit essentially. But yeah, it's crazy, and like they're holding out, man, and it'll be cool to see if they can keep it up, because I mean, I'm fucking hoping so. I mean, I want these mandates dropped just like everybody else. It's wild to me just to see how many people are saying like, yeah, I don't want these mandates anymore, but I can't support this movement. And you're like, this movement has shown you they're against every negative thing that has occurred during it. They've fixed it and done better tenfold every single time something happens. Like, yeah, and it boggles my mind. Like, where, like, these are the same people who ripped down a statue of Sir John A. Macdonald last year during a protest, who was our first prime minister, and like literally like pulled him off of a building. You're like, don't tell me you all of a sudden care about statues. Like this has literally been a theme of I hate saying sides, because I really don't like bringing it to that conversation, but it's like, it is a very like left moral stance that is getting taken against this movement. And it's like, yeah, that left moral stance has been tearing down statues for, like, I mean, in Canada and United States.
Yeah, I was about to say, and the United States for sure.
So it's like, yeah, why are we sitting here and you're gonna all of a sudden these rules for thee but not me? And it's like, even these aren't nearly as egregious as past instances, but yeah, it's wild, man. I hope that covered some of it. But
no, it definitely did. And I just wanted you to debrief real quick about what are the exact mandates going on in Canada. I think you might have said something about them, but what is going on with the vaccine mandates right now? Like, it's different, because I know private institutions, like my school requires the vaccine and now is requiring the booster. Haven't got the booster yet, but I'm going to have to. What is Canada's, like, as a nation requiring you to do?
Yeah, so we enacted a Vax Pass, and it is, you can't go into restaurants, gyms, no restaurants, gyms, movie theaters, entertainment, sports events, anything like that. Kind of your standard Vax Pass system that you would have seen used in Europe as well. And government workers, vaccine mandates. Then what was the tipping point for this movement was the mandates against the truckers for going across border.
Yeah, okay.
So essentially what it was is that you now had to be vaccinated, and then also like a 2-week quarantine. I don't know 100% about the quarantine, but it was something along the lines of you had to quarantine for 2 weeks coming in and out. And it's like, and vaccinate. It was like, what the fuck? Like, this does not make any sense. Especially too, like, thinking about it, even you're like, it's truckers, like they literally sit in their truck for a week alone at a time, like, and the only contact they're having is maybe with the 1 or 2 people that helps them offload a truck. Like, it's minimal. But yeah, we did the whole firing nurses, all of that kind of stuff. And then when that didn't work, we entered in a lockdown again late December this year, of 2021. So it's like, to me, I'm like sitting here, we've got vaccine passports, all of this, and we are in complete lockdown. We're just opening, I think it was 2 days ago, we just started reopening restaurants to 50% capacity or whatever. But it's just insane. There's literally, everything's being done on like, all policy is being made on public polls now. Like, nothing is being driven by science anymore. It's complete optics. Yeah, it's about getting reelected at this point, taking the least amount of damage. I mean, and just the fact that they can't, if they up and lift everything, which would be great, and hopefully the truckers make them do, but it's like, if they up and lift everything, they're kind of admitting that these weren't exactly necessary. And when you're ruling completely on authority and just saying, take me at my word and I know what's best for you, and then you can't admit you fucked up, because you've been predicating the last 2 years of your policy based on you 100% know what is best. So yeah, they can't really take a hard stance against these mandates now, because yeah, they'd literally just be making everybody question their authority from here on out, which, I mean, if you aren't already, it's kind of wild. But
yeah, and so just a follow-up question for that is, how, because I mean, I'm sure you know a little bit about the United States, how does your specific constitution work as relates to your different, you guys don't have states. What are they called? Your little sections, regions, provinces. That's what they're.
Yeah.
Yeah. How
Provinces
does your
and territories. We have a couple. I could, dude. I can. It's so weird. Like we have, like, yeah, we have provinces and territories. Most of the territories are. Dude, I couldn't even tell you. I'm an idiot. I'm a shit Canadian. But yeah, provinces and territories. There's yeah, Alberta, BC out west, which are the main two out west, and then Ontario is the other main. Then we've got some prairie and some east coast as well, and then Nunavut, which is up north.
So how does your national constitution relate to your province constitution or your province governments? Because the United States, I'll debrief you and the people if they don't know. The way our government works is anything not directly written in the United States Constitution is delegated to the states and to the people. So the states have all this power that's not written in the Constitution. This is why Texas and New York can be completely different places in the world, right? Because those are the two most people are like, holy shit, Texas and then New York. And so how do your guys' provinces deal with their own relative government? Like, is your Canadian Constitution overriding all the time? Can the government just come out and put those mandates in place and a province has no say? How does that interaction work?
Yeah, so it is actually very similar to the states, and like Canada is similar to the states in a lot of ways. So instead of a constitution, we have a Charter of Rights, and yeah, that Charter of Rights is comes down, yeah, anything essentially the same thing where provinces can decide like how they're going to run their province. For instance, Saskatchewan, which is a prairie, it is two provinces over to the west of Ontario, and they have no restrictions. When Omicron started coming around, the leader in Saskatchewan said, yeah, we're not doing this whole mandate thing again, where we realize it's not working. We need a separate way about it. So it is kind of similar in that sense where, yeah, it's like we've got our own little mini Florida, like being Saskatchewan, but it's just like like a shithole.
Yeah.
People from Saskatchewan are going to hate me for saying that, but like, hey, I love the people of Saskatchewan. Like, I like that kind of stuff, but like, hey, I do not want to go live in a prairie in a field, and like, good on you if you can. But yeah, those winters, man, like winters in Canada are bad enough, but like out in the middle of a field, like that shit's tough. I'm not doing that. So like, unfortunately, when you guys, got a state to bail to, restriction-free state to bail to, it was the Sunshine State. And when we got a restriction-free province, it was literally in the dead middle of a field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, DeSantis is I don't know if you know anything about the governor of Florida, but he's
I do.
crazy.
So I do actually follow American politics.
Okay,
like,
cool.
A lot. So you're like, yeah, you're good. Yeah.
Yeah. But for any of your listeners who are Canadian that don't know, DeSantis is probably, besides Donald Trump, is probably the most famous Republican right now. He's, I would assume he's either going to be on a ticket or he's going to be running for president in a couple of years, because dude, it's so crazy. Like, I've never lived in being polarized as it is, I've never lived at a time, I don't think, where the approval rating of the president of the United States is 20%. Like, that is so bad. Crazy. It's ridiculous. And also, everybody knows that he is not cognitively there. And it's
Dude,
crazy.
Could I see the funny one that I heard him say the other day? I was like, I haven't heard of anybody rip on him for this yet, but he said, if you buy an electric car, you can get across the country on 1 tank of gas. I was like, dude, how is this guy leading? Like, this is wild.
Yeah, that's a good question to ask, just to preface this. How does Canada and the Canadian media portray America? And is it like, do they like softball Biden and just hate Trump? Or is that what they do? Okay, that makes sense.
And like, and don't get me wrong, dude. Trump grinds my gears like just as much as like majority of politicians, but the media does definitely like go hard on him here, and it's the exact same thing. So like, what's crazy is actually we have like very similar. We steal your guys' culture. Like, we do not have political culture. We do not have entertainment culture. Like, we genuinely steal your culture. We've got like hockey and lacrosse and fucking maple syrup. That's it. Like, it's pretty trash. And I do love, people are gonna be like, fuck, this guy hates Canada. I don't hate Canada, but it's like, yeah, we're not exporting any crazy culture. But so we steal a lot of your left-wing culture. We have a lot of the woke ideas finding their ways up into Canada. So for instance, the Ontario's teacher union just made it so that if a natural representation of 50% people of color or Indigenous or I can't remember the third one, sorry, but it was like if they don't have 50% equal representation on this side with and it doesn't naturally occur with the white vote, then they are going to downweigh the votes of the white teachers to make it equal representation in the vote of the teachers union. So like, we're definitely getting a lot of those identity politics ideas finding their way up into the mainstream up here. And the thing is we don't have a conservative culture to battle it. Like 4 out of 5 of our political parties that you could vote for this year are more left-wing than even your liberals or your Democrats. Sorry, we call them liberals up here. I mean, I guess they're liberals there too, but just different name. Yeah, so it's quite crazy. Like even our conservative leader was like full on board with vax mandates. Like, so it was like, yeah, we don't have a conservative culture to balance it. So we just get the left wing ideas up here for sure. But we steal your guys' politics quite a bit.
Well, I don't know much about the origins of Canada. I do know that a lot of, the structure of America was built on the backs of racist ideas, and racial ideology. And so like, that's somewhat like, there's a good portion of the population where that's still kind of found its way up. And a lot of the structure and a lot of the conservative ideologies today, I wouldn't say like maybe personally people aren't really racist. Like, there's obviously people who are racist, but I would say a lot of it comes from this idea that generational wealth and the accumulation of that people have had over time, and not wanting to give that up for people who have been deemed victimized or oppressed. And so that's kind of the battle. It's really, if you want to look at it from anybody that's not in America, it would look like old white man or a white man versus everybody else. And that's kind of what it looks like. And there's a little more to it. I think traditionally speaking, the liberal ideas have always been progressive. They've always been more utopian. They're always looking to better society. And conservative has always been more about tradition, more about staying slow, progressive reform. And so there's some of those on the backing. And like DeSantis, for example, his big thing is like against the vaccine mandates and more about individuality, there's not really, but a lot of it is about, identity politics versus wanting to stay traditional, and so I think one thing that you can see all over the world that I think America influenced is just like the polarization of like the oppressed versus the oppressor, and how that's a constant battle. And so I'm sure that has found its way, regardless of how much conservatism there is in Canada. I'm sure there's still this idea of like oppressor versus oppressed, and they're one.
That is very common up here for sure. Like I said, we definitely have just as much of those conversations up here as I see happening down in the States as well. Like, dude, Canada has a rough history with some aspects for sure. Like, even especially with our treatment of Indigenous communities while this country was being established, like the residential schools that we've been digging up mass graves like crazy, and like thousands upon thousands of children that died in these mass graves. And like, it's extremely sketchy too, because there isn't even records of necessarily what happened, like not even names of these kids that went missing, no reasons for their death. Like, I mean, you can only assume like some pretty terrible shit went on there. But I mean, at first, when everything kind of started coming out, people were like, oh, it was just disease, you know, it was like, oh, disease, like, you know, it can't be all blamed, blah, blah. And then I was like, you know what, the fact that they for sure were not keeping records of names and all of this, like that, no, that this is not happening, like that, that's not the case. There was definitely a big push to try to civilize the savages, so as they would say. But yeah, like that kind of shit is definitely like gross. You know, I don't think anybody sits there and I think where the divide on this conversation happens usually is not necessarily that people are like, oh, this isn't good, or this was good, or this was bad. It's like, what do we do with this information now? And that's where the divide happens. Is it's like, okay, I think we're all in agreement that this thing happened, this thing was bad. Now what does this mean? You know what I mean? And that's a hard conversation. I don't know what the fuck to do. Like, I don't know what the best way forward is. I usually try to stay out of those kind of conversations of this is what's best for everybody. Like, I don't know, dude. I'm 27. I'm a stoner. Like, I fucking played music my whole life. I'm not even, I didn't even go to university or anything. Like, I'm not the person to figure this shit out. But yeah, no, it's just like, I think my thing has always just kind of been like, what just happened? Like, what's the truth here? Like, that's all I'm concerned about. And as far as what we do with that information after, I'll leave up to somebody else. But yeah, Canada definitely has a shady past with a lot of that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, I think some part of the scary thing about the United States right now is half of the, well, a lot, like the entire woke community, alongside with half of the like other liberals in the United States, they want to tear it all down and start anew. And the other side is like, let's hold on real quick. This is like the best system that's ever worked. Like, this is like how all democracies and republics that have been formatted afterwards have come from this one and worked, you know? And so I think that is like the danger, is like, if we get rid of something like the United States Constitution, the United States government that has worked for this long, and we can say worked in parentheses because it did what it was supposed to do, is like slowing down, not letting anyone take complete control, no tyranny, you know, kicking people out of office. What comes after that? You know, it wasn't long ago that the Soviet Union or the Russian Revolution happened and killed tens of millions of people, and China is still murdering people in genocide. And now a part of American culture caters to China, and we just allow them to commit mass genocide against the Uyghurs and the Muslims. And it's like, if
you know what's crazy? What? So Trudeau, our PM, and his whole cabinet, when we were as a country, when they were doing a vote in Parliament to decide whether China's actions against the Uyghurs were genocidal, Trudeau and his whole cabinet played hooky from Parliament that day. They didn't attend the vote. Like, dude, Trudeau's in like, he looks up to Xi, like yeah, he's, oh fuck, it's crazy. It's crazy watching it, man. It's crazy watching, like,
yeah. How do you deal with your guys' is like leader, your guys' is like head of state? I guess technically your head of state is still the queen, right? But
no, that's not a thing for sure. That was 1876, I think, was when we broke off from British rule. So yeah, like 100 years after you guys. But
you guys don't consider yourself still part of like the royal family?
No, we have no ties. We have the queen on some of our money, but like, we have no political ruling ties with the monarchy anymore.
I could have swore you guys still were part of like the royal family. Yeah. Well, good to know. But yeah, I think, you know, back to what I was saying, I think the danger of it is like, you know, where do we go from here? You know, like, America was like it was like, regardless of the bad things America did, it's always been a pillar of hope and betterness and pushing for equality and, you know, wanting to better the world, fighting evil people that way, fighting tyrannical people that way, you know, and defending people. That's kind of what we've always been. And now it's kind of becoming like the two major bad countries in the world being Russia under Putin and China under Xi Jinping, like super powerful countries. they're watching the downfall of the greatest liberal superpower to ever exist, and they're laughing, while it occurs. And it
They're tossing
scares
fuel on the
me.
flames.
Dude, yeah. I just read something that said that like 100% they are sending bots into our media
Oh
to
yeah.
keep people fighting. It's crazy.
Yeah, dude. So they have bots now, and I'm sure America's doing the same shit. Actually, you know what? I can't even say they are, because China has such raps under their social media. Like, and dude, that's where I get so like torn on all of this. Like, as a citizen, I'm like, don't fuck with my like ability to speak freely. Like, I really don't like that. But then on the other side of it, I'm like, they're weaponizing our free speech against us, and it's fucking crazy. And like, I'm not saying the best way to deal with that is to just take it away, but it is kind of one of those things where we have to recognize the fact that our free speech is being used against us, because those bots, dude, they can now have like full-on conversations with each other, and it's fucking crazy. And what will end up happening too is that they can, seeing as they have these bot accounts that can comment and like posts, all of this kind of stuff, stir up controversy, they'll actually end up being able to decide what goes viral. So like, they could end up like, say, make a post about something, and then have all of their bots jump into that post and just stimulate it into the algorithm, and completely have that post take off. Like, this is something that Rogan's brought up on his podcast a couple times, but it was like 19 out of the 20 top Christian Facebook groups on, well, obviously Facebook, are run by Russian troll farms. So what ends up happening there too is Facebook changed it so that, you know how when you used to get a Facebook group invite, you had to accept being before like getting that group's notifications.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're on Facebook and somebody sends you a group and like invites you to a group, it just automatically adds you to it. So they can just add everybody to these groups. And I'm sure it happens outside of Christian sites as well. But they can just add everybody to these groups and then start stirring up shit with memes and all of that. They've Russia, and this is like 100%. Russia has orchestrated 2 opposing protests to happen across the street in the States before. I can't remember exactly where it was in the States, but they got a separatist group to go right across the street from an Islamic rights group. And you're like, they literally both like started these Facebook groups, got these people together, and they were like Russia organized this protest, being like, all right, we're going to meet here at this point. We're going to, protest for Islamic rights, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Or, and then to another group, we're going to protest to separate from we're going to get our Confederacy back, all of this. This is where we're going to do it. And then those 2 groups showed up, and it was just this whole like, holy fuck you guys thing. And it was just like, holy shit, this is reality now. Like, so it's nuts that these foreign countries can do that stuff, man, and just undermine democracy like that.
Yeah, dude. And it's crazy because, it brings me back to what you're saying about Canadians flying the Confederate flag, which is just crazy to me. But like, you drive into the country, and there's a lot of young boys and a lot of white people flying that flag, and they, when Americans do it, Canadian,
is it still pretty popular in the States to fly the Confederate flag? Because when I say people in my high school are doing it, I mean like literally 2 or 3 people that were like all friends with one another and thought it was funny. It wasn't necessarily like a thing.
It's not as popular as obviously having the American flag. That's now having the American flag is kind of a symbol of conservatism now, which is crazy. It's like we all live in America, but it's still, I mean, I'm sure in the South, like in Texas, I'm sure. I live in
it's got to happen.
So it's like, I live in Oregon now. I go to school in Oregon. So it's like, I mean, I'm sure if you drive
Were you there for the
yes.
What was it called? Chaz?
No, that's Seattle. That's Seattle.
Oh, see, okay. Shit.
Portland riots. So I was here for that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I didn't go, obviously, but people, like the protest, people went, and it was crazy. Like the uproar after George Floyd was crazy in America. Like it was insane. Like there was and now we have this area where it's like all cops are bastards, abolish the police on one side, the other side's like blue lives matter. And to an extent, like it's gotten probably not. Honestly, I take that back. I was gonna say it got better with the. I was gonna say it got better with the pandemic, but as I'm thinking about it, no, it hasn't. Yeah, dude, it's brutal. And I fancy myself as someone like right in the middle. Like I'm nowhere. I don't go to either side. There's some things that I think we should make weed legal everywhere. And I also think that anyone who loves anyone should be able to marry that person. And I
Yeah.
also know that racism is a large part of why America is so powerful. However, I don't think I have to put a shot in my arm. I don't think I should be
Yeah.
mandated to do that. I
Yeah.
also think that I should be able to think critically about things before I do them. And now, crazy how that's a right wing thing to think now.
Yeah, man.
Um,
And
what were you gonna say?
that's what's so weird is like I was just gonna say like how if anything I would describe myself as an anarchist who knows that his political beliefs are not practical on a large scale. So like I switch back and forth all the time. It's like I've voted for the most liberal party that we have, and I've voted for the most conservative party that we have. Like I'm all over the spectrum. Like different times require different political techniques. And like right now I look at it and I'm like, all right, our economy's in the shit. We've got all these mandates. Like, yeah, we should like this is when conservatism is needed. And it's like when things are going well and everybody's hunky-dory, like right before heading into these lockdowns, it's like that's when I support liberals. Like that's like if everything's good, everybody's taken care of, cool, let's try to figure out how to make things better. If things are in peril, it's kind of just like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be spending billions of dollars on like social programs that we're not sure if they even work yet. Like sure, I'm not saying to cut social program spending, like like whatever that works there, but like maybe we shouldn't be tossing crazy amounts of new money into like printing money. We did the same thing you guys did. Like the vast majority of the money circulating in our economy right now has just been printed out of thin air in the last 2 years. But like it's wild, dude. But yeah, that just to piggyback off of what you're saying there about the whole like even it doesn't matter anymore. You just get lumped into some box that people want to throw you in, and it sucks.
Yeah, and also like America showed like American how would I say this? American I don't want to say media, it's not the right word. American pop culture, I guess is the right way. It's so dominated by wokeness and progressiveness that people just say idiotic things all the time and get away with it. Like did you see what Whoopi Goldberg said about the Holocaust?
Yeah.
So for people who are listening, Whoopi Goldberg, yes, Whoopi, you guys all know who Whoopi Goldberg is. She said that the Holocaust wasn't about race. And then she doubled down saying that it wasn't about race again. And then she finally came out and was like, apologized for hurting people and said it was definitely about race. And they suspended her for 2 weeks, right?
Did she ever say that it was actually definitely about race? Because I saw her go on Colbert and only again double down on the fact that it wasn't about race.
After that, she was on The View again to.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But,
I missed that. I missed that one then.
And first off, if you know anything about World War II, 100% about race, he was trying to instill the Aryan race. It was ethnic cleansing. Like it's not, you don't have to think that critically about the Holocaust to know it was about race. And second off, she got suspended for 2 weeks. Whatever. I think that she should probably have not got suspended because I think the people, especially in America, should be able to free think. However, you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you're going to ban free thinkers about people about talking about the vaccine mandates or any conservative thought, if you're going to fire these people,
yeah,
then you got to fire her, dude. You can't just like if you're suspending people who are saying dumbass shit you're only going to suspend them because they have progressive ideas, but you fire people who are saying dumbass shit because even when they have conservative ideas, unless they're saying like neo-Nazi shit, like that's a different conversation. But it's like that's a double-edged sword and a double entendre, and you cannot do that. You gotta be fair and equal, and it's just not, dude. It's just they allow these woke people just to say dumbass shit, and I don't think anyone should be saying dumbass shit, but I do think. As Americans, we have this idea that free speech is our number one, right? It's our number one. But it's not anymore. It's about my feelings can't get hurt. I don't want to get offended, and you can't have a different opinion than me, or you're out of here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. To me, like, I never even sit here and do the like. See, because my goal in it with the whole like, even when it comes to like, say, cancel culture or any of that stuff, it's like let's not try to get even let's just try to play by the same rules essentially. And I know that's what we're essentially doing, is going like, these are the rules you're playing by, so all right, I'm going to adopt those rules and do them. But like, even for instance, when it comes to like, say, cancel culture, yeah, the right tries to cancel people on the left all the time as well, when it comes to like that Olympic girl that like stood away faced away from the flag as the anthem was happening. You see Colin Kaepernick, like, look, I don't think necessarily a lot of those takes are great, but like, I also don't give a fuck if they keep their job or not, like, after, like, that has nothing to do with my life. I really don't give a shit. But I think the best way that I think about this is it happens a lot, because I'll talk about the conversation about toxic masculinity a bunch, and like, people will come to me and be like, well, don't you think we should just start a conversation about toxic femininity then? And I'm like, no, I don't think that's the best way to go about it. Because if we're sitting here and looking at, like, let's say the goal is to make sure everybody is equally represented, everybody feels equally heard, all of this kind of stuff. If we're sitting down at the negotiation table, is the best place to start by saying, this is where I don't like about you? It's like, no, okay, let's define everything that works great about us together before we start even thinking about going like, okay, this is where we butt heads, or this is where we can make movement. Let's first find that ground that we can cooperate on, and then just build upon it. Because just this whole tear each other down until there's nothing left game doesn't really end well for anybody. And it does suck to see that it's going that way. And like, I don't really necessarily hold it against conservatives that try to turn around and like, say, go like a big like train against Whoopi Goldberg, but like, it's crazy, man. Like, that it's just this like never ending cycle of it. And it's just, I don't think you can get out of it. And I think the only thing that makes me feel good about it all is reading history books and realizing it's always been like this. I used to think like, oh shit, things have never been like this before. And then, yeah, even just reading about how turbulent politics was between socialists and liberals and conservatives leading up to World War I and World War II, like even before they kicked off, just how turbulent shit was. It's like, oh, this is just human nature. And that's kind of what I was actually wondering to pick your brain about some philosophy stuff. I know we've been talking about politics this whole time, but I'd love to hear about your experience studying philosophy, as I'm a stoner philosopher, not a university student philosopher. So I'd love to hear the comparisons.
First off, what is that book right there?
This? Yeah. Thus Spoke Zarathustra.
Yeah, I thought it was Nietzsche.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll preface this by saying, I wrote my senior thesis. I'm continuing to edit it, but I wrote it on, it's a 32-page thesis on finding continuity between classical Marxism and Marxism-Leninism, or what Karl Marx wrote and what Vladimir Lenin implemented, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wrote my thesis on. The philosophy of, it's a political philosophy thesis. It's regarding, for anyone listening, I've talked about this a bunch, but it's the ideology of the Soviet Union and what Karl Marx wrote. Okay, so I've studied Lenin and Marx a ton. I disagree with both of them, and I agree with both of them in some aspects. I don't think either one of them are great people necessarily, but I think that they had some, especially Marx, not really Lenin, he kind of whatever, but it doesn't matter. Marx had a lot of good.
Lenin wasn't such a great guy.
They both weren't. I wouldn't say they're both great guys. I studied them because I hated it so much, Mm-hmm. I was a young kid and I listened to a lot of Jordan Peterson, right?
Yeah.
And then, so I studied it because I think you should, if you want to disagree with something, you should know it like better than 100%. Anybody. Mm-hmm. So changed my mind a little bit about, especially about Marx. Like I totally understand the grab of intellectuals, like why people gravitate towards Marxism. And I think really the reason is because he gives an out, right? He gives an easy out, and it's a rational out. And so the biggest thing that this leads me into philosophy. The biggest thing that I've been struggling with, and actually now I'm taking a philosophy of law class, so it's actually helping a little bit. But the biggest thing I've been struggling with is the idea of rationality versus morality. and how they're not connected very much. And people like to link them way more than they want to. And yes, it is the easiest one we can see is you can easily rationalize moral and good things and just things. But we don't talk about how a lot of evil people, especially Hitler, Marx, they all rationalize evil things by saying there's good that will come out of it. So Marx, for example, says that all we need is a violent revolution. We got to kill all these people who disagree with us because then utopia will come. And this is the thing we see.
Let's also not forget that all of them held a victimhood mentality structure as well. None of them thought themselves to be powerful leaders that were dominating the globe. They all thought themselves to be victims of a conspiracy, whether it was that the Soviets were victims of a capitalist conspiracy, or whether the Germans thought that they were victims of a Jewish. Because like when Nazism started taking off and stuff in Germany, like the economy wasn't great. Like so it was kind of that's how everybody got it, was they said, okay, our economy's trash. Everybody was looking for a reason for it, and Hitler gave them one. Hitler told them that it was the Jews, that it's the Jews' fault that you're struggling economically. So it's like all of these movements were based off of victimhood stances too. But anyway, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off too hard there, but
no, you're good, dude.
I think that's I always think that that's such an important claim to make when discussing those people, that they all thought themselves victims.
And Hitler, I haven't studied him enough, so I can't talk about him enough. But Lenin and Marx were both, another thing that they had to their advantage was they were both very articulate and intelligent, especially, I would say Lenin more than Marx in his ability to speak, just because we don't really know when Marx was never a leader of a political party. Lenin was a bureaucrat. You know, he his ability to rile people up was I mean, Hitler had that too, right? And so I think what I struggled with is like when we're living in a time where people, you know, the first out is to say that it's rational for you to get an abortion, right? And it's moral, it's for the women. I think it's really dangerous to link morality and rationality, because they're not the same. And so what I struggle with really is like, how do we separate rationality and morality while also like ensuring that there's forward progress? And so I'm also going to preface this by saying that I'm not really a moral relativist. I don't really believe that, you know, morality is relative to the place you live or the society you live. I don't know if you know anything about relativism.
I haven't dove into it, but I'm understanding the concept as you're talking about it.
Yeah, and then obviously the antithesis of that is objective morality. Sorry for everyone listening to this. I'll try to describe it. Objective morality basically says there's objective moral things that everybody, regardless of society, should live by. And I kind of lean towards that one, but I'm not 100% there. And so I worry that we tend to take the former rather than the latter, and we tend to say that everything's relative. It's all about the society we live in, and therefore whatever's rational for your society, do that. And I think that is so freaking dangerous, dude, because that's how you get genocide, that's how you get indifference, and that's how you get into these spiral out of controls where the only answer is violence. And I struggle with how to answer that question.
Yeah, man, they're tough. Well, I feel like they're unanswerable questions, because it's like even if you operate strictly on morality, you can end up doing some pretty terrible shit. If you end up strictly orienting yourself on rationality, you can also end up doing some very terrible shit. At the end of the day, I think it's like that balances everything, like as cliche as it is. But like, even like, I think the best villains in movies are the ones that you can, like, I mean, you always see it, like the best villains in movies are the ones that you can understand and kind of empathize with. And they always do that by showing you that these evil people are like you. And we are one and the same. Like, that evil doesn't just exist on the outside, and it's not just in this other group. It's not, you know, whether you're 1930s German and want to say that evil exists in the Jewish race, whether you want to say, you know, you're Soviet and you want to say that it exists in the Western culture, all of this, evil doesn't reside anywhere but in every single one of us. And it's like not recognizing that and not understanding that each and every single one of us is fighting a personal battle of good and evil, not this whole like grand scale. And I think that's where the movement and the conversation needs to end up, is on an individual level of, you know, my girlfriend and I talk about this quite a bit because she's big on the whole concept of creating an ethical code off of the laws of physics, essentially. And even that I see being very, like, she's brilliant, like she's absolutely brilliant, and I love her idea. But even that, I'm just like, fuck, it's so crazy. I don't know. And that's where it's like, I think that's where we need to start, is just like, I don't know, let's figure it out as we go. Let's not pretend like any of us has the best solution to all of our problems, because that's where we do end up in these extremist places, and operating, whether it's operating completely on, I mean, you could make an argument that the right is more tending towards the rational side, like operating on pure rationale, and the left is operating on pure moral. And that's where, like, I think they need each other. Like, that's how I look at politics in general, is I look at it like a mom and a dad. Like, literally, you can think of liberals as your like compassionate mother type, and you can think about conservatives as your dad that tells you to, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, wipe it off, and keep going, kind of thing. And I'm like, you need both of those. Like, either, you know, you can see it all the time. Like, say a kid grows up in a one parent household with a father that's too cold shouldered, and, you know, that typical conservative mindset. It's like, yeah, they grow up to be the exact same, cold shouldered and all that. And then on the other end, if they grow up in a household where they're smothered by compassion, they end up being narcissists. Like, it's the clear cut path to each of those. And it's like, neither of those are good things. So yeah, it's like, I think the line ends up somewhere in the middle between those two, like whether it's rationality or morality. But I don't know what you think, but
It's tough, man. And I don't have the answers, you know. I'm just a, you know, young guy, and I, you know, when you're thinking about these questions, I think somewhere I do think I have the edge on some people is I don't think a lot of people sit down and they think critically about something for a long time. And I've tended to do that with a lot of difficult things that I've either talked with people about or just read, because, like, I don't know. I think part of it is the fact that a lot of what I'm reading, especially going to a liberal arts school in Oregon as a straight white man, is I'm reading almost from the defensive, right?
mm-hmm.
I feel like everything attacks me.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of that, I've gotten to a mode that I just analyze and I take apart everyone's arguments when I'm reading it, regardless if I agree with them, because it's, when I learned how to critically think, that's what was happening. I don't know if that's 100% part of it, but I think it does have some aspect of it. But yeah, dude, who gets to decide what's moral and what's not, you know? And that's another one. That's another one that I'm like, you can become really dogmatic, especially if you say God does, right? You're like, well, yeah, which God does though, right? And so if you're talking about,
could I actually interject with my girlfriend's idea here? She'll love that I'm doing this, but and I think this is kind of cool. Is so she looks at God as the son, and so she looks at essentially what would be moral would be, and she wants to do away with the concept of like subjective morality in a sense, but say putting it into terms of the scientist versus the narcissist, that kind of thing, like the two polar opposites, whether it's you know, light and darkness, essentially. Like, yeah, like light is healthy for you, like, and the sunlight, polarize it with the dark. Same kind of thing with scientist and narcissist. It's like, you know, the narcissist only thinks about things in their realm. They're not willing to give an inch, whereas the scientist questions everything, even his own theories, or hers. But concept is to like literally just orient ourselves in moral stances as to what is literally best in health terms, from like a physics standpoint. And I'm like, I think there's a lot there. I actually think she shares a lot of commonalities with Sam Harris on that side. But yeah, no, it's even that with like, I mean, getting into like Nietzsche, that whole concept of the death of God, like even that is insanely interesting to me, because I've always been an atheist in a sense. I'm loosening up on in spirituality terms over the last, maybe I'd say 2 years, but yeah, like I don't think you can actually, like I don't think you can just do away with the God as we once, or as I once thought we could, like, because you start putting that faith in people in your immediate vicinity. Because like I can't remember, I wrote something a while ago. It was like we don't put our faith in religious deities anymore. We put them in political gods. And it's like that's essentially what you're seeing, is like we had these structures and these religious structures that answered the questions we couldn't answer for ourselves, essentially. And now, seeing as we don't have anybody to answer that for, it's like we look to literally our political leaders to look at that. Like, I mean, literally look at what's happening with around Pfizer and the vaccine. Like, it is very faith-based. Like, and I don't even say this as like, oh, it's a cult, it's a religion. But like, if you look at the functionality of the thought process that goes around the pro-vaccine stance, it is very religious. Like it is very this God, whether it's Fauci or whoever you want to put in that seat, or Pfizer, who literally thinks of himself as literally a god. Like, that guy's a megalomaniac. Like, it's fucking crazy. But then you have these people that then sit there and go, okay, I'm just going to take this, that this person is interpreting the science, which I guess is the God aspect, this thing that I can't understand, and I need this person, whether it's the priest or the scientist, to tell me what's on the other side of it. And they are, and you can even see it with guys like Fauci, where they're saying like, I am the only person who can interpret this, like, don't even bother trying. It's like, that is classic like religious behavior, as to trying to get followers, essentially being like, no, you can't think for yourself, because how you can ever come make sense of all of this science? You need me to do that for you. And then it's like, then he's the one, now he's the preacher. And it's like, it's pretty crazy. And like, even when certain things aren't adding up, it's like, all right, we're gonna just continue on completely on faith. Like the fact that anybody, look, I'm not even against vaccines. Like, again, I'm just an idiot. Like, I don't care. Do your thing. But like, the fact that anybody at this point can be sitting here thinking that there is any credence to mandating them on a societal wide level and creating a split society based on it is like, they are in a religion at that point. Like, there's absolutely no rational thought to support that. So that's where I look at it, like, that is a completely moral stance. They've just decided that they are moral for doing so, and there's no rational thought left. So like, yeah, I definitely look at that whole like argument as a religion at this point.
Yeah, definitely. And also, dogmatism in any sense is bad, right? Believing without doubt is kind of like even in Christianity, the whole point is that you doubt, you doubt that God exists or Jesus was the savior, and you put your faith into it, right? Like, dogmatism is dangerous. It's what causes genocide. It's what causes the Crusades. It's what causes the atrocities. And to an extent, when you start to put, I read this book in Philosophy of Science last year. It was called The Tyranny of Science. And, one of the things I got from it was that, science is unquestionable. There is a tyranny of science. You cannot question the science, and so, to say that, it's rational to listen to these scientists and have to listen to one specific person without any reasonable doubt, without any critical thought of your own or of anybody else, It's dangerous. It's manipulative, and it's not how we were born, especially as American citizens. We're born to critically think and debate, and that's what our political system was made to be. We're supposed to be the smartest people, critically debating about topics and then finding common ground. It's not what it is anymore, and to an extent, it's just these dogmatic individuals who subscribe to an ideology of someone they find to be a god, whether it be Trump or Fauci, really, and they don't even give themselves room to change or grow. And I'm worried of what it's going to look like for my future, what it's going to look like for my kids, because I'm one of the people that, and people close to me, there's some of them, but there's not a lot of people who just sit here and, when they're questioned or when their ideas are questioned, they don't sit down and like think about them. They don't like question their own identity. They don't question why they believe something. And I'm not somebody who subscribes to ideologies very often, because I know ideologies are what causes, like, I'm a true believer, especially reading Marx and reading all these people, that ideologies are put on us more than we like think we subscribe to them. I think ideologies are placed upon us by people way at the top, more than we subscribe to them. And so I'm not a person who does that. I just think it's,
I mean, literally look at the basis of our time, like how we count time, like our days is literally based off of an ideology. So it's like, we're surrounded by ideologies at all times for sure. And they are definitely always a pressure and pushing down on us. But I try to stay as clear from ideologies as possible. On that side as well. Like I don't want to get entrenched in one way of thinking. Again, I swing from side to side from here and there, but I feel like, at my heart, I'm an anarchist. I think the funniest thing for me to see though is, like this dogmatism of putting people into these boxes and just like these hard lines as to like be like, this is the faith, don't question the faith, whether it is conservative or liberals. Like, man, I'll make a video talking about, so I talked about China and their the CCP and how they did their racist policies, like especially towards Black people, gays, and movies, all of this kind of stuff. And it's like, it's wild to me because I'll post a video shit talking China for cutting Black people out of their movie posters and all of this kind of stuff. And on that same video, it's like I got called a liberal fucktard and a conservative grifter. You're like what? You're like, okay, like I don't get it. Like, okay, I'm hating on China, so I'm a conservative, and I'm anti-racism, so I'm a dumb liberal. It's these literal things, and that I think is what's so scary to me to see in as far as like the future thing. That's why I'm trying to bounce. I want to like head down to like Costa Rica or something. I'm looking at guys like the do you follow like Carnivore MD or any of those the health accounts? There's some health accounts that have just completely bailed, and they're just living down in Costa Rica, like dude, just living the life, like fucking farmers markets, fresh fruit, all that kind of stuff, and like living on a beach. And it's super, like I was looking, dude, you can get a 3-bedroom house with a pool on literally on Oceanside in Costa Rica for $330K US. And I'm like, and this is like in a touristy area of Costa Rica too, so this isn't even some like
shack.
And it's like, I'm talking like brand new build 330, like the houses haven't even constructed yet. And it's like, it's wild to see, especially what's happening up in Canada, away from all of the ideology stuff, even just literally the economy. I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I don't want to raise kids here, just for that reason. Like, our housing market has gone up 30% during COVID alone. Like, for instance, I had a friend who bought a 4-bedroom house with a very small yard a year before COVID for high fives, and a year ago he got it appraised and it was 8.5, or sorry, not like 850. And it's like, it's crazy. And I'm sitting here going like, no, you can't, like our kids, like this next generation, they won't be able to buy a house here. Like it'll be impossible. It will be a nation of renters. Like I'm in that boat. Like I rent. I think I could probably have some workarounds to that if I wanted to, but I kind of am doing the whole try to do it on my own thing. But yeah, it's like it's pretty wild the way that even just cost of living is going. And I look at places like Costa Rica, and literally their base cost of living is half. Like their grocery costs are half. Like it's I'm looking at it like it could be the utopia that I'm like as close to the utopia as I'm looking for, but we'll see. Like, but yeah, no, it sucks because I never thought I would have been thinking like this, but here we are, like 3 or 4 years after telling myself I'd probably never leave Canada, to sitting here going like, holy shit, not only am I now scared of my leader who is so clearly in a dictatorship mentality, but also just economics. Like even if they got rid of him tomorrow, like how quickly could they piece things back together? Like it's getting tough up here for that.
What's your guys' homelessness problem looking like?
Not nearly as bad as you guys, but we definitely have a homeless problem, especially in the cities like Toronto for sure. I mean, I guess that's where normally homeless problems happen anyways, but I wouldn't say it's like anywhere near what you would see in LA or anything like that. Like it's very far off from that, but there is definitely a large homeless population in Toronto. There is definitely some encampments and parks and stuff like that, tent cities, but yeah, not at the level that you see in places like California. But yeah, there's definitely a large homeless population here.
Yeah, that's one of the trickiest ones, right? Like, what do you do? Like, and it's crazy because like they flock to these areas that allow it, and I haven't really seen anything get better. I've only seen it get worse, and like
Mm-hmm.
there are people like my roommate and one of the professors he's close with. They do outreach
That's cool.
work and things like that, and they help those people, and they try to. A lot of these guys get caught like public urination and they become sex offenders. It's like they're not sex offenders. They're just homeless people, and they're people with problems, really. And so outreach work is really necessary, especially in Portland, and L.A. and New York. And yeah, dude, it's bad right now. It's really bad, and it's not seeming like it's gonna get better. And
That is a huge problem because I even look at that and literally just look at it as the drug problem, the addiction problem, and like how many of those people that are on the streets right now in Canada and US alike, like how much of that started like I like I'm by no means am I saying like the like opioid crisis is 100% at fault for homelessness, but like we have to look at those two things like in line.
mm-hmm.
um I mean, people don't really like talking about it because even in Toronto here, I had somebody start trying to refer to homeless people as vulnerably housed, and I was like, why are you calling them vulnerably housed? And he's like, well, like some people want to live outside, so it's like we don't want to call them homeless because that is their home, but like their home is like vulnerable, like they're vulnerable in their home. And I'm like, wow, like we're getting to this point of compassion where I think it is like it's uncompassionate at that time, like to be so compassionate that you're like this person may tell you that they want to live outside, but objectively that is worse for them on every single human level, for their health. So it's like, why are we, and I'm not saying to go lock that person in a prison or anything of that nature. I'm not saying to start handing out criminal charges, but like I look at places like over in Europe, like because people love to cite the like Dutch laws and stuff against drugs and like the decriminalization of them, and like how essentially everything is decriminalized and that's the way to go, and just stop with this taboo around drugs and addiction will stop. But you go actually look deeper into what's happening in those countries, and they are still dealing with their the addicted homeless people through the legal system. But what they're doing is they essentially, instead of just grabbing a homeless person, tossing them in jail, or hitting them with some fine or anything like that of that nature, what they do is they do a court mandated like intervention essentially. So like the courts will grab that person's family, like any of their close kin, any of that anybody linked to them essentially, and then have them come in and do an intervention, and then afterwards they have the choice of rehab or or criminal prosecution or something like that. I can't remember, like not full blown criminal record or anything like that, but did definitely face some sort of legal action, but it's either like rehab or this. And I look at that and it's like you have to do something about it, because if you just let it happen, it's only going to get worse. I don't see any scenario where that problem fixes it on its own, but it's also one of those things where it's like, how do you fix that problem without having some like less than desirable overstepping of governmental power? Because like, I mean, I'm on board with like, hey, don't fuck with my shit, the government, but there is kind of also that line where it's like, I don't think we can just kind of pretend like it's okay to let these large groups of people like set up dude, as much as like I'm probably get like, yeah, these are the kind of things you'll get roasted for saying online, but it's like, let's not pretend like there isn't a crazy drug scene happening in these tent cities. So it's like you can't just expect that to go away on its own. But again, that's one of those ones where I sit here and I go, I don't have the fucking answer. I'm just an idiot. But
Yeah, dude, that homelessness is the toughest one to answer, because it's like most of those people have addiction and mental health issues, and that alone is something you can't answer. We don't have answers to that. The only option right now is really like mental health facilities, and rehab is kind of attached to that, and then police, and the police don't do anything. Like, I'll give you an example. My friend who does that or my roommate who does that outreach work, he's my friend too, and I don't want you to think he's not my friend. But so homeless lady, clearly on drugs, came to our house one time, tripping, like just like and instead of calling the police, which is what everyone does, because he does this, he calmed her down. He sat her in the garage and he was calming her down. He's giving her water and things like that. And she got on his phone because she was playing a song or whatever, and she was calming down, and she called the police on accident. And she was paranoid. And the cops came, and they're like, not that they were like joking, but they're like joking, laughing, like, oh, that's just Shady Shay. That's what they call it. They're like, they knew who it was. And they're like, yeah, we can't really do anything unless she's harming herself or others. And so they were just like, yeah, are you fine? Or are you fine? Ask him. His name is Max. He's like, Max, are you fine? And he's like, yeah. And, and then she freaked out a little bit after the cops left, and he hasn't seen her since. But like, that's an example of a situation where cops do not help. Right. Mm-hmm. And I'm usually against the abolishment of the police, but like in aspects like that, there should be other areas of law that have mental health facilities, drug facilities, that don't have people with guns, that have people with rehabilitation status, or they have abilities to de-escalate situations that are not very harmful. They're just like amped up, and up here usually. And we don't really have that. And so that's like one of the areas we're really lacking. And that's the area that would help homelessness the most, right? Mm-hmm. You don't need to call these cops to homeless people who are throwing shit. You need people who understand mental health and can like stand like not too super close, but can understand the situation, de-escalate the situation, get these people back to either a shelter or their in-housed area, and then help these people, become into the community, because usually there's an area for homeless help, like shelters, food, things like that. Get these people back into the community and back into areas where they can function if they can, and then hopefully into situations where they can either live in a shelter, or they can work in part of those regions, maybe getting out food to someone that they, helped. And it's very few people who get out of that loop. But if you can address it from a mental health professional situation or a homeless professional, that's how you end that stigma. It's not sending cops out there,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and see, it's so like, see, that's one that's even so tricky too, because I agree that like, other than arresting a homeless person, there's definitely some wholesome videos of cops having great interactions with people in times like those, but there's also like, if we're talking the vast majority of the time, it's probably just nothing's going to come of it as far as any positive movement on the problem. But I also look at it like, holy fuck, it's so dangerous, because you're like, on the other end, like, even for instance, that the defund the police movement pushes very hard for the domestic violence calls to be answered by social workers and stuff. And it's like, that's the most dangerous call cops go to. It's like, I'm not saying cops are the people to go in there and that are going to all of a sudden be like, all right, guys, let's sit down and hash this out. All right. Like, let's figure out why you're mad and then why you're mad, and we'll get everything back together. That casserole is going to be fine. Like, we'll all eat that together. Like, that's not going to happen. But on the other end, it's like you're seeing it now where social workers are getting attacked and starting to like there was a few cities in the states there I was reading recently that are starting to pull those policies because a couple of social workers actually even got killed showing up to like domestic disputes and stuff like that. I don't know whether that's happened necessarily with homeless stuff, but it's like these are where those lines get so sketchy. And again, like I'm not the type of person to be like, this is the one way to go. I think the closest I have heard to that is Jocko Willink's take on police, where he thinks that you should up funding for cops and make 20% of their time spent training, just like a Navy SEAL would, like de-escalation drills, all of that kind of stuff. Because a cop goes to school, does his basic level training, which isn't much, and then gets the gun in the holster, the badge, and that's all right. Now this is what I am. I'm a cop. This is what I do. And I'm not saying they don't have brush up techniques or training courses here and there kind of thing, but as far as like, I mean, imagine if that's how the military operated. Like, it wouldn't be very effective at all. So it's like, yeah, I think these cops really do need to focus on training more. And I don't think that's on like individual cops per se, but on the structure of policing. And then also on the other end, I think you need to push for positive reinforcement of cops. Like, I even saw, and it was such a joke concept, but I really started thinking about it, and I was like, holy fuck, that would actually be really crazy. And like, I actually think it would genuinely change things. So somebody was joking and being like, well, could we just change, like, nobody ever feels like they're safer when a cop's around. Like, everybody always goes like, oh fuck, like, am I doing anything wrong? Like, everybody instantly just kind of like, shit, is there anything that I could get charged for? Or like, if you see a cop in your taillights, you're kind of thinking like, all right, when am I going to get pulled over? You're not thinking like, oh, thank God that guy's there. But there's this post joking, and he was saying how he's like, wouldn't you just love if like a cop followed you for a few blocks, like you got pulled over and then they just like rolled up to your window and was like, hey man, I just wanted to let you know you've been killing it, I've been following you, like full stops, everything, not even been rolling, like here's a $10 Starbucks gift card, like this one's on us, and then just like head off. Like, that could complete. And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, that would be like, you obviously laugh at first, but then you start thinking about it and you're like, wow, that could totally change the mentality around policing, that they're not just people that you look to as people that sit here and punish for bad behavior, but also that enforce and promote good behavior. And yeah, I started genuinely thinking about that idea and being like, I think that could change a lot too, about like being like, yeah, all right, put cops, like, maybe, okay, once every 2 weeks, a cop's duty is not to go out and give as many traffic tickets as he can, but to find as many fucking old ladies to help across the street as he can, or any of this kind of stuff, just to change the relationship the communities have with their police. But I mean, I know that's kind of pipe dream thinking too, but
yeah, part of that is part of the problem with that is it's all about this.
Yeah.
So a lot of these guys have quota systems where they have to ticket a certain amount of people in a month or a week, and they get if they're at the bottom of how many tickets they've given out, they get punished and things like that. So a lot of it isn't their own. They don't want to be ticketing people. Like cops, if you take a survey, cops do not want to be ticketing people. They want to be doing other things that help the community more. Yeah, they have quota systems in place to keep them doing things like that, But to go on to a different topic just real quick,
for sure.
I wanted to know your opinion on the Joe Rogan Spotify controversy. Because I saw you post a video, but I was like, I'm just going to ask him about it.
I don't know if I have much of an opinion per se, as far as like what's going on. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty funny because I'll have some people going after me being like, this is like you're trying to peddle some conspiracy theory, and it's like, it's really not. I'm pointing out the fact that a fund called Blackstone Investment Group bought 50% of Neil Young's music catalog, and they also employed the ex-CEO of Pfizer as their senior advisor last year. And they also are pushing for many more artists to join, and you're seeing also like even a couple of those Neil Young's 70s rockers as well start to hop and ship. But this is where I draw the line on this morality stance of anybody that's come at me and said, oh, well, it's because he had the polio vaccine, or sorry, he had polio as a kid. So of course he's extremely pro vaccine. I'm like, look, I don't give a fuck what the guy's vaccine stance is. I just don't believe he's doing it because of that. I'm sorry, you do not sit here and say you're taking this moral stance on Spotify and claiming Spotify is this immoral platform for spreading disinformation, and then turn around and start offering a free 4-month subscription to any of your fans that are willing to ditch Spotify for Amazon Music. Like, are we pretending that Amazon has not been doing union busting and also literally having their employees die in their warehouses, making their employees piss in water bottles because they're being tracked by apps that if they're fucking 2 minutes late to a delivery or picking something up in the warehouse, that they get fired literally by the app. So it's like, I don't believe he's taking this moral stance. When you're sitting here and trying to funnel people into Amazon, when Blackstone, who owns 50% of his catalog, has substantial business ties with Blackstone as well. Like I'm just not buying it. And people will be like, well, he already got paid. What do you mean he's selling out? I'm like, first of all, I haven't used the word sell out. I don't typically think of that kind of stuff. I always joke and I'm like, hey dude, if somebody starts waving some money in my face, I might start thinking some different ways. No, I'm just joking. I definitely won't say anything different for money, but it's like, that is a real fucking thought that I have. Is like, would I? So like, I'm not saying I'm above it, but to think that this guy would sell his music rights to a company, and that for millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, and that company would never pick up a phone call again to that man. Like, I'm not buying that. I'm not saying that's 100% what the story is either, but if I'm looking at the objective scenario, I definitely think this is a Wall Street hit on Rogan. I could be proven wrong, and maybe I'll have to eat my sock on that one. I won't do it literally like Sauger did, but yeah, no, it's like, I look at scenarios and I just go, what's the most likely scenario? I'm not saying this is 100% the scenario, but I just take it and go like, what makes the most sense here? And the most sense is that, yeah, Wall Street is leading a crusade against Rogan. They don't like him. He's been like, I mean, even have you seen, the reports of his ratings compared to all these media outlets? Like, he's got like 10 times or 11 times the viewership of CNN's top viewed show. Mm-hmm. And he does that every single episode. Like, these corporations and these Wall Street trust funds and stuff, they do not like Rogan at all. And so, like, to put it out of the question that there would be some institution crusade against Rogan is wild. And I think the craziest thing to see about it is people who have been claiming that Wall Street and these financial groups and the institutions and all of this kind of stuff completely take the institution side and just start defending them. And I'm like, it's completely wild to me that like people are willing to all of a sudden join hands with somebody that they've been claiming is their mortal enemy for this, because they hate Rogan so much, which is like, dude, I don't even listen to Rogan that much anymore. Like I try to read more than listen or watch anything. Like I sold my TV, all of that. Like I've been strictly trying to switch over to books. But like, I get it if people don't like Rogan, but also to say he's doing anything disingenuous or that he's purposely spreading like misinformation or any of this kind of stuff
ridiculous
is absolutely wild. Like, you listen to one of his episodes, especially with like Peter McCullough or the Alex Berenson episode where he talked about vaccines as well and all this kind of stuff. Like, as he's talking about it, he is consistently being like, hey, Jamie, can we just check that real quick before like moving on? Like every single time. And like, don't get me wrong, like he'll like obviously he misses the mark on some things sometimes, but like to think that he is not, this is the only guy, this is the only media head on that stage that has ever got something wrong and then issued like a massive statement about it the next day, and like in an honest way, and not just buried some retraction in their 10th page of their website. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. It confuses me to see everybody join hands with the establishment against Rogan. Like, you can not like the dude, you can not want to listen to his podcast, but to say he's doing anything dangerous to society is fucking wild.
They're just bullshitting because of how fucking powerful he is, dude. That guy might be the most powerful, like, media guy in the world. Like, his influence, like, and the crazy part, what they hate the most is he's talking to, mostly the people he's talking to are young people, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, the oldest people that are, I mean, everyone's listening to him, but like the large majority of people who are young people, and he's influent, and he's telling people to critically think and get their shit together and work out and be healthy and critically think about things like the government tells you, and they fucking hate it.
So much.
They don't only hate it because he's like trying to be like truthful about things and tell people to critically think. They hate it because they had to sell their souls basically to these large corporate heads and to these government officials in order just to have a voice in journalism. Mm-hmm. And he just gets to say whatever the fuck he wants and make millions of dollars in streams on it. And they hate it, and I fucking love it.
Yeah, dude. Well, I look at it just like, you could have. There is nothing telling you that you could not have taken that risk. I'm taking that risk right now. Like, after I started seeing kind of the support that I've been getting for what I've been doing online, I instantly started being like, oh shit, there's something here. And it's like, okay, I this is going to be my first and only focus for like a considerable amount of time. And see if I can make it work. But it's like, yeah, that's the thing, is those people didn't want to take that risk, because I mean, I'm sitting here going, I've failed 2 different music projects after years of work into them. Like, it's fucking, I'm used to it at this point. But like, most people aren't willing to do that. They aren't willing to put all their chips into themselves, because, well, if they don't trust themselves to be able to cash out on those chips, and it's crazy to see the jealousy essentially play out, and yeah, that is very present, and that is a very big part of it for sure. And then also just the fact that, like, yeah, he can't be bought to say something. Like, they hate that for sure. It's like, you can't pay him with ad money to be pro your product, or pro this or pro that. So yeah, it's I think if shit gets real hairy with this, I was listening to do you watch Crystal and Sagar much, like Breaking Points? They're like kind of my go-to for any news stuff. So they used to work at The Hill, which is obviously a very big media outlet, and essentially they had their largest YouTube show, so they were putting YouTube clips together, 10-minute rant, or not even rant, just 10-minute news coverings of what's going on. And about a year ago-ish, they bailed from The Hill because they just had so much fan support that they were essentially like outgrowing The Hill. And they were like, all right, cool, we'll just ditch and do our own little independent media company. And now they're like completely independently funded. And it's the same thing. They're experiencing the same thing as Rogan, where it's just like, yeah, they get fucked by the institutions and all that. Not nearly as much on the same scale as Rogan, obviously. But yeah, like, it's I think if there is anybody out there that's looking at it right now and just kind of thinking about whether to put their future into the institutions of themselves, I think right now,
fuck them.
Yeah, I'm very much, I'm unemployable at this point, man. Like, I've said too much shit, made too many jokes on the internet. I know I'm not as quippy in a live podcast as I am, because I should be clear to anybody listening as well. Usually when I write my scripts, it's like I'll write like a a base script for something, and then I have a buddy that him and I punch up scripts together quite a bit. But it's like I'll get my basic formulation down, so it's like my opinion and my idea and my words, and then we'll work it out and kind of like come up with the joke aspects and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's like I'm at the point where I'm unemployable. Anywhere with an HR department is not hiring me at this point.
Yeah, I think about that, but also I'm not doing anything horrible, and also I'm gonna be a lawyer, so like I'm gonna just work for a dope ass firm.
You're saying you're not doing anything horrible and you're doing law?
I'm not doing anything horrible. I'm not saying anything.
No, I'm just kidding.
Harmful. Yeah. I know what you're saying. I am excited to go to law school though, and hopefully the United States exists with laws within the next few years. That would be really fucked for me if it didn't. I think it would.
So are you minoring in, like, how does that work? So you're in school right now for politics and philosophy, and then you would go major in law? Is that what you?
No, I just go to law school.
Oh, okay. So you would go do separate schooling again?
I'm getting my bachelor's degree, which
Gotcha.
is an undergrad degree in politics and government, and a minor in philosophy. And now I will go get my Juris Doctor from a law school. Go work as a lawyer somewhere.
Gotcha. That's dope, man.
Yeah. It will be who knows? Maybe I won't do that. I want to do it, but you never know. Like, I'm not going to just say like 100% that's my game, because like I never know, nobody ever knows.
No, you got to go where the wind goes sometimes. And just, I feel like that's when life is best, is when you're going with the wind. Mm-hmm. Like, dude, at this point, it's like people, I think about long-term stuff a lot, and people would think that I don't. I can think of a few close to me off the top of my head probably. But the thing that I think about is, like, I look at it as a long-term investment right now. I do not think it is that smart to play the game. And by no means am I giving anybody personal advice here.
He is 100% giving you personal. Take it, don't listen.
Quit your jobs. But I think about it as the fact that we're getting to this point where pension plans are even getting scary, that they could just go completely bankrupt. We look at things like the housing market crashes, all of that, like there's no doubt we're in another bubble right now. All of this kind of stuff, even if you just think about literally inflation as a concept that happens every year for like, I mean, even if they keep it under wraps, it's like they aim for somewhere around 4%. It's like, okay, that old mentality of, putting 25% of your paycheck under your pillow, it's like you're losing 4% of that every fucking year. So it's like, not necessarily that anybody's taking it from you, but it's just that the inflation rises, your money is actually less valuable than it was this time last year, because essentially the cost of goods are higher, right? So it's like this old school mentality of just buy a house, put a few bucks in a savings account every paycheck, and 50 years from now rely on your pension. I look at that and I go, the housing market's in a bubble. Okay, the inflation is fucking crazy right now. Like, I mean, I think we're up somewhere around 7% right now in Canada. And on the other end, all of our government programs are like, bleeding money and not able to keep up. So it's like, I'm not putting my long-term faith in those. I'm looking for kind of just go the opposite route of being like, all right, how can I take care of myself on a basic level, even if like all money was to run out and I end up just going fucking caveman. But it's like, just start thinking, like, I mean, that literally sounds doomsday prepper, but definitely not. I don't have any, I'm not sitting on a chair made out of cans or anything at the moment, but it's like, I don't know. It's like nothing's certain at this point anymore. So I think it is very much like go with the wind, see what happens as far as societal wide. Cause as much as I hope it doesn't happen. And I also I'm not one of those people to get invested into the idea to the point that I want it to happen. But it's like, I look at it and I go, oof, this Western world, it's like civilizations crumble. And I'm don't think it's a ridiculous take anymore to say that like you could be looking at the downfall of the Western world if shit doesn't really take a turn in the next 5 to 10 years. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, it's gonna next year, man. It's like we're done. But it's like, yeah, it's like if we don't do this 5 to 10 year turn from now, and China does pull off their 2050 plan, and it's like Asia pulls over, like, I mean, I think it's by 2030 that they think Asia will actually take over and have the majority of the world GDP. And it's like if China keeps gobbling up these Asian countries like they're trying to with Taiwan right now, that with them taking back Hong Kong, all that stuff, they're going on the offense in Asia. And I mean, they are literally, everybody talks about World War III as like, when will it happen? It's like, I already think we're in it. World wars are just kind of happening different at this point. Like they're happening on an economic and social level, because I think we've just got to the point with weaponry where it's just like we can't have wars unless it's literally just like, I want to destroy you. Because
until we have like robot people to fight them, right?
Yeah, that would be fucking so much cooler than actual warfare if it's if it's just robots. But yeah, even that, like, I mean, I mean, ever since, people love to talk about nukes being the nuclear deterrence and mutual assured destruction. And it's like, I think that's what we're seeing. And I think we're in a war right now, and just nobody wants to pull that trigger first. And like, I mean, even you see it right now happening. Like any single one of these scenarios, where whether it's China and Taiwan or whether it's Ukraine and Russia, like either of those scenarios could easily be the fuse on a world war. Like that stuff has happened time and time again. So it's like, yeah, I don't think any of that stuff is out of the question for sure.
Yeah, man, me either. I think it's definitely gonna happen. Like troops are definitely gonna fly into Europe and then some into Asia, and we're gonna be fighting Russia and China in the next couple of years, and we are, and we know it, and everyone knows it. It's just when, like you said, when are we going to?
I guess it's when does the citizenry get filled in that we're in a war?
Yeah, and when do they start pulling citizens to fight it again? When do we? When do the American troops?
Oh, dude, I don't even care if it makes me a coward. Fucking enlistment start coming, like I'm blowing out a kneecap for sure. Like I'm not playing around. I won't go kill somebody. I'm Muhammad Ali in it. Not even necessarily as like a fucking stance about being yeah, it's just I don't want to fucking kill anyone. I'm not pulling a trigger on shooting somebody, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, be crazy if my grandfather fought in World War II and I fight in World War III. That'd be insane.
Yeah, no shit, eh? Fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I look at that. Bro. Sorry?
No, what were you gonna say? No, you go first.
Oh, I was just gonna say I literally look at it like ever since I heard Muhammad Ali and how he skipped out on the enlistment for Vietnam, and just how he was like, yeah, no Viet Cong person has ever harmed me before. I'm not going over there. I'm not doing that. And it's like that's how I've looked at it ever since. I was like, they haven't done fuck to me. I'm not fighting your war.
Yeah.
War is just old men talking. What's that FDR quote? Old men talking and young men dying. Or there's the other one too, where it's war is. The rich wage war and the poor die. It's like, yeah, it's like I'm not playing. No, fuck you guys.
I'm not playing. Yeah, I was just saying, man, this is fun. Is there anything you wanna say or talk about before we go, or we wrap this up?
No, man, this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you having me on there for this.
Yeah, dude, anytime, man. It's like I said, like I told you before we started, it's really just a conversation. Wherever it goes, it goes. I don't want to set a structure because I like being outside the structure. I like being outside, I think it's more fun like this. I think it's more I want to say open, but it's more true, it's a true conversation that
well, you also naturally gravitate towards what's interesting, right? Like rather than just be like, okay, this is the topic we're going to talk about, and maybe one person's interested in it more than the other, and then it's like that conversation doesn't necessarily ever go that well. But if you just have genuine conversations, they usually end up. So I think I think your podcast structure or lack of structure is great.
Yeah. Well, man, this was a lot of fun. I'll keep you posted with all the information. It'll be out tomorrow.
Okay. Perfect.
So you have a great night. You have
perfect.
we'll stay in touch, man.
Perfect. Talk to you soon, brother.
See ya, man.